Okay, guys, this is our third and final training from this particular worksheet. So I'm going to go through some do's and don'ts. Okay, ready? We're going to start with a don't. Don't expect the user, meaning the student, to know how to communicate simply because they now have a system. I hand this to you. You've never seen it before, and you're like, what's wrong? I don't understand. What do you want? 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 Right? They're like, what? It would be like showing up in another country, and be like, well, now you are in Germany, so answer me in German right now, and I'm going to talk to you in German. It's not reasonable. They haven't had time to learn, right? So don't expect that. We have to teach it to them, which means maybe we have to learn German first, or in this case, maybe we have to learn AAC first. But that's our job. We're the teachers. That's our job to work on, learn, and teach them. So you're going to have to teach, you're going to have to model, you're going to have to learn your German, you're going to have to speak your German, you're going to have to practice your German if you want your kid to speak German back, right? So you're going to have to learn your AAC, speak your AAC, model your AAC if you want to get AAC back. Do presume competence, right? Presume that these kids can learn. Now, that doesn't mean that we give the most fancy high-tech system out there to every single student. Every student is going to have their own needs that we, the speech paths or the outcome specialist, is going to need to individualize for that student. But don't give up and just assume like that kid is never going to be able to use this system. If we've chosen the system carefully, then this is something that they can hopefully grow into. But they're only going to grow into it if we provide them with that 4,380 hours of modeling. Don't underestimate the AAC learner. That means that if we think, they really can't do it, we're going to do it for them. That might make them really sad and frustrated. I've had kids over the years that you can just see on their faces. They're like, don't do this for me. Give me my time. I can do this myself, please. Do set high expectations, though. Right? So we're not going to just like assume that they can't do it and we're going to help them do everything. We're going to expect that they are going to make some progress. It doesn't mean that we expect perfection. They're not going to be perfect. But maybe at first, if you have a kid that really doesn't understand their light tech system and they kind of point in the right direction, you're like, yeah, they're starting to understand that this means something and this is telling me something. And then the next time, maybe they get a little bit closer to what it is you think they're trying to say. You're like, yes, set those high expectations. And then maybe a week later, they're getting really close. And you're like, yes, because you've set the expectations really high. You're not doing it for them. You're helping them learn on their own. Okay, do respond to the intent of their message. So maybe the kid said, not like, okay? And so then we can say verbally, you're like, oh, I don't like it. You're telling me I don't like it, right? But you don't need to expect them to say, I don't like it, unless that is their actual goal. But for most of our kids that are especially at the light tech system, we're not going to expect it to be perfect. We want to know their intent, and then we're going to want to act on it because, heck, they just try to communicate with you. Yes, I'm so excited. They just try to use their system to communicate with you. Okay, do keep the device programming current. So if they don't have the words to say things that they really need to say, then you need to talk to the speech pathologist or someone to possibly enter those words in. Now remember, I gave an example in one of the other movies about the word robot that I was using with some of my kids. And I really debated, do I want to add the word robot into their device? Is this worth having an extra word in their device, or do I just want them to learn how to describe it using describing words, right? Like it's a square and it's silver and it's big. So you need to really think about, is this a word that they're going to be using very frequently, or is this a word that we really only need today? We'll never need to use the word robot ever again in our lives. And if it's something that even a week from now, you're like, nope, he's going to want to talk to me about that robot. He loved that robot. He's going to want to tell mom about that robot. Then yeah, we need to enter that into the device. And it might be that we enter it by making a fringe all about robots, right? I mean, maybe. It just depends on the kid and what they have, if they've got the communication board or if they have a whole entire system. Okay, okay, here's a big don't. Don't test the kid, right? The goal here isn't to say, where's it? Where, or that's a bad one. I like, where, stop, tell me stop, where's it? Stop, where's stop, where's stop? Come on, where's stop? Show me stop, show me stop, come on, show me stop, right? Because that's not, I mean, that would be like someone coming up to you and being like, say baby, 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 say baby, just to prove that you can, right? It's not meaningful. That's not really communication. That's just a behavior. And if your real goal is to get them to practice the articulation of baby over and over again, that's one thing. But if your goal is just to test to see if they can find it on their system, then this is not motivating when this is just a test sheet, right? Like, I'd throw this away if every time it came out, someone was like, where do you find this, right? I mean, come on, let's be realistic. Let's think from their perspective. If it's just a testing device, then it's not motivating. It's not really communication. But if we're using it to model and have fun and them asking you questions is totally great. And you asking them questions can be totally fine as long as these are questions that you're not testing them. Like, who do you want to take you to the bathroom today? Or where should we go to get that piece of paper? And not like there's one right answer, but like maybe there's 3 different classrooms you could go to get that, you know. Or, I wonder what he's doing right now. Those are awesome questions. And those are really interesting questions. So those are questions that promote, social communication. They're not testing. So think in your head, am I testing him or am I really asking him a legitimate question that I would ask to a friend? Okay. Do ask open-ended questions, and I actually just went over that right now, so we're golden on that. Do use non-directive language, like some of the examples that I've been giving before, which are where you're not telling the kid what to do, but you're just having fun with language and communication and having a conversation. That's a big do. And do have fun. So a cute little quote in the circle here. Motivate, right? Get them excited about communicating. Model, show them the system, and then move out of the way, right? Let them take over. Once we've modeled, once we've taught it, this is their communication system. They should be in the driver's seat at this point. Okay, last page, and you guys are awesome. It is the longest page because, we're going in order, but it's still going to be good. And you guys are going to come out of this knowing so much more information than most people. Okay, so if this is all about tips and support strategies, okay? So the first one is if you understand the AAC's user message, accept it and respond accordingly. So this is something that I struggle with. I'm just going to be honest with you. If the kid has been like, and I know the message is that they really want to go, do I make them say it with their board and they practice the motor memory for it? Or do I accept the fact that they're going, And honestly, I'm going to tell you, it's going to depend on the circumstance. If the kid is very clear that he does not want to do something, and he's telling you clearly, and he's not hitting anyone, and he's not biting anyone, he might not have said, I not want to go, right? And that's what you really want him to do. But he said not. You might just take that and say, yep, I get you. You do not want to go. And then you might model it, and you're like, let's get out of here. Or, in that case, it would be, let's stay right here. So it really depends on the kids' goals. But in general, you want to accept their communication as long as they are communicating in a recognizable way, the way that we've been trying to teach them. Would it pass the stranger test? Number 2. So if you were a stranger and this kid went, would the stranger know what it was this kid was trying to say? So this is a really good one. This, to me, really directs the one above it. Like, for example, we have a student who calls everyone what sounds kind of like, right? And the teachers know what means, but nobody else, including myself, knows what means. So the teachers might act on that. And even if they tell me that like, really means, Joey, I'm going to pretend like I'm a stranger and I'm going to be like, yeah, I really don't know what you just said, and I'm going to encourage them to tell me more, or please tell me on your device because I just didn't understand that word. Because these kids get used, families get their kids. They're like, I know everything he has to say, right? And if the kid lives their whole life like that and they're only at home, then great, good for them. But what if, they want to live on their own or in a group home, or they want to have a relationship with someone? They have to know how to communicate to people that are not in their, in their life all day long, like their self-contained teachers or their parents. So if it doesn't pass the stranger test, then you really need to get more information from them, and that's especially when they should be using their communication systems. Okay. The next one is if the AAC user initiates any communication with their system, be it light tech or a communication app or a whole system, praise them immediately and honor the request if you can, right? So if they get onto their device and they're like, finished, right? If you can, please honor that request because first of all, they knew that that device has a communicative function. Second of all, they knew what that word actually meant, that they pressed it. And third, they were actually trying to get your attention and to communicate to you. So they just did 3 communicative acts there. There are times you cannot honor that request. And I get that, because sometimes we can't just be finished, right? I get that. But whenever possible, please try to accept it, even if you can only accept it for a few minutes. They're like, finish. And you're like, okay, we're finished, but only for 5 seconds. Okay, it's time to do it again, right? Okay, let's see. If they're struggling, the next one is if they're struggling to communicate with their AAC system and you have a guess at what they're trying to say, then maybe help them say it. Like this happens a lot with one of my students. She'll start to spell it because she's a great speller. So she'll start to spell and then she'll hit the wrong letter, and then the device is like, I have no idea what you're trying to say. And then I'll be like, oh, you were trying to tell me goose, weren't you? And then at that point, for her, I'll probably sound it out, g, ooh, that's kind of tricky. That's actually a double O. Or I'll go back and be like, well, okay, let's see. A goose is an animal, so let's go to animals page. And then, well, gosh, it could be a bird or a water animal, I think. But let's try birds first and go to birds and kind of help guide her through it. And then sometimes she'll be like, I'll get to the end and be like, goose. And she's like, you're crazy, lady. I was not trying to say goose. I was trying to say gold because I won the gold medal yesterday, right? And that happens. And that's just a communication breakdown. These happen. Okay, next one is if you're not sure what they're trying to say, ask them to give you clues. This is hard for a lot of our kids to give us clues. Clues could be descriptive words like, well, what color is it? What are you trying to tell me? Or they might be adjectives. Let me get to an adjective fringe here. So they might be adjectives where you're like, it's big. Or you could even ask them, say, is it big or is it small? Okay, it's big. Okay, is it a square or is it a triangle, right? And to give you clues because that's going to help them process what it is, and it's also really going to help you understand what their message is. Let's see. If the AAC user does not attempt to use their system, we just kind of went over that, right? Yeah, it's basically the same thing. They're not trying to use the system, but you don't understand. Help guide them through the system. That would be your modeling, where you're showing them. You're talking as you point through their system to teach them. The next one is model. Create an immersive environment. So in one of the other training videos that I made for you guys, I told you about the 4,300 over 4,000 hours that your typically developing kid is hearing spoken language, and that we need our kids to be seeing/hearing augmented language for over 4,000 hours. The only way that's going to happen is if you're modeling all day long. I'm sorry, and I know that's going to sound really intimidating at first, but it really does become really, really natural as you get used to it. I promise, it really does. It's like learning another language, right? At first you're like, oh my gosh, I'll never get this. And then eventually you're like dreaming in that language. But this is actually easier than doing that because there's a whole lot less words than another language, and most of our communication systems have this handy dandy thing called English words written right above the pictures, which is very helpful. Yeah, so it's actually easier for us than learning a new language, a completely new language. Okay, allow the student time to explore and babble. So one thing that a lot of people struggle with is a kid gets a new device and all they do is they start hitting the buttons. And you're like, oh my gosh, please just be quiet. I just can't stand it. So there's a couple things you can do. First of all, with some of the iPad apps and with the high-tech devices, you can often change the settings so that they have to hold it longer so that it doesn't just sound like go, 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 go. But instead they learn that I have to go, right? Like you have to, it actually changes the settings of the device. The other thing that you can do is just give them a time, like for 30 minutes during choice time, do whatever you want with the device, make as much noise as you want with the device, and honor that time as babbling. Then if over a long period of time you still feel like they're babbling and they're not really making any communication progress on it, like they're just still using it as a toy and not a tool, then you have to rethink, well, are we also letting them use this device for fun and playtime? Do they only associate iPads with playing games? Because if that's the case, then maybe an iPad's not the best communication tool for them, right? Honestly. And maybe this is a kid that's just going to do better with a light tech system where they can't be making that noise all the time. You know, it just really depends on the kid. And so you're going to really want to work with the specialists on that. The other part of babbling is the fact that a lot of kids don't understand they have to point to something very specific. Right? So I have a couple kids right now who are basically babbling with their communication board. They're kind of taking their hand and they kind of get that most of the things they want to say are right down here. And I think that's awesome because they understand that this has a use, that this is trying to communicate something. They're just not really sure what it is. Just like a kid who's babbling might be like, I know I'm talking, but I don't know what I'm saying, right? So I love it when the kids just start to get the idea, oh, this is meaning and this can be kind of fun and I can get some cool things out of this. And you want to honor that and you want to move from there with the hope that over time that they will go from this to more specific to what it is that they're trying to get to. But again, they're only going to get that if you've been modeling it for them over and over and over. Okay, create opportunities and motivations for our learners to communicate, but don't force them to communicate. So that goes back to the testing. We don't want to test them all the time, right? We want to make communication fun, right? We got to make it motivating. If it's easier to bite someone to go get what you want, then they're probably going to bite someone to get what they want. We got to make it motivating. Oh, it's really fun to ask for that cookie because not only do I get a cookie, I also get a cracker when I ask them. The next one is find your support network. So you need to find the specialists and the people who are learning this along with you. It's hard to learn these new things. You guys need to do it together, right? So you got to work with others. You got to learn together. You got to ask questions. Find videos. There's so many YouTube videos. There's some really inspiring social media accounts. There's so many ways to really build a community of learners. You're called a communication partner, okay? Now you know what your term is. Look it up. Google it, communication partner. Okay, and finally, celebrate the little successes along the way because every little success is actually a really big success. And communication is messy. It's a journey. These students, I'm still learning to communicate. Your students have so many more years of learning to communicate ahead of them. So your job right now is to give them those solid foundational skills, because it's going to make a tremendous difference in their lives. Communication is what's going to build their social relationships. It's what's going to build their future employment. It's what's going to help them get around town. It's going to help build their life skills. Communication is just so vital, and you are such an important part of that. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being an amazing communication partner who's willing to learn more to help your students be the very best that they can be.